Have you ever woken up from a dream so vivid, so intense, that it didn't feel like a dream at all, but more like a real encounter? Have you ever noticed a strange scent in your home? Something sweet like flowers or something heavy like smoke, appearing from nowhere and disappearing just as suddenly? Or maybe you felt a cold wave run through your body, followed by a deep sadness that didn't seem to come from your own thoughts. What if none of these moments were random? And what if they were not simply tricks of the mind, but something reaching out from beyond what we can see? Today, you are about to uncover a truth that most people ignore, a truth that can completely change the way you understand the spiritual world around you. This teaching comes from Padre Pio, a man who did not just speak about faith, but lived within its deepest mysteries, a man who carried the wounds of Christ, read souls with unsettling clarity, and communicated with souls who had already passed on. According to him, purgatory is not an idea or a metaphor, but a real place where souls wait, suffer, and long for help. And in their desperation, they find ways to reach out to the living, sometimes quietly, sometimes urgently. The most heartbreaking part is that most of these calls are ignored, dismissed as coincidence or imagination, leaving souls in suffering longer than they should be simply because no one recognized their plea. Padre Pio revealed that there are clear and recognizable signs when a soul in purgatory is trying to reach you. Not vague feelings, but real experiences that happen in everyday life. Moments that seem ordinary, yet carry a hidden spiritual urgency. And once you begin to understand these signs, you are no longer just someone observing life. You become someone who can respond, someone who can help, someone who can bridge the distance between this world and the next. To truly understand these signs, you first need to understand the man behind them. Because Padre Pio was not speaking from theory, he was speaking from direct experience that unfolded over decades of his life. Experience witnessed not only by believers, but also by doctors, priests, and countless people who encountered him. For more than 50 years, he bore the wounds of Christ on his body, wounds that bled, caused him pain, and yet became a testimony to a reality far beyond the physical world. And during that time, he developed an extraordinary spiritual awareness that allowed him to perceive what most people cannot see. He did not just believe that souls in purgatory existed. He interacted with them, he spoke with them, and at times he would suddenly pause in conversation, turn his attention to something invisible, and quietly say that a soul was present asking for prayers, as if the boundary between this world and the next had momentarily opened in front of him. What makes his teachings so powerful is not just that he witnessed these encounters, but that he understood their purpose. Because according to him, souls in purgatory are not distant or disconnected from us. They are closer than we think, aware of our lives, aware of our prayers, and deeply dependent on our help. They cannot help themselves anymore. They cannot shorten their own purification, and so they reach out to the living in ways that are subtle but real, hoping that someone will recognize their presence and respond with prayer. This is where most people fail, not because they lack compassion, but because they lack awareness, because they experience these moments and immediately explain them away, reducing something sacred into something ordinary. Padre Pio insisted that God does not reserve this kind of spiritual awareness only for saints, but allows ordinary people to experience these signs as well, because every person has the ability to become an instrument of mercy, to help a soul move closer to heaven through prayer, sacrifice, and attention. Over the years, through repeated encounters, he began to notice patterns, specific ways in which these souls try to communicate, not randomly but with intention, using methods that touch our minds, our senses, and our emotions. These patterns became what he described as clear signs, signs that anyone can recognize if they are willing to pay attention and not immediately dismiss what they experience. Before we explore the first sign, understand this clearly. These are not superstitions, and they are not meant to create fear. They are invitations, invitations to act, to pray, and to respond to a reality that exists whether we acknowledge it or not. And once you begin to recognize these signs, you will realize that what once felt like coincidence may have been something far more meaningful. In the next part, we will enter the first and most intimate sign, the one that happens when your conscious mind steps aside and your soul becomes more open than ever before. The first sign appears in the most intimate place of your existence, a place where your defenses are lowered and your mind no longer filters reality in the same way. In that place is your sleep, because according to Padre Pio, when the body rests, the soul becomes more receptive to spiritual communication. And this is when certain encounters can occur that feel far more real than ordinary dreams. These are not the scattered, confusing images you usually forget within minutes, but experiences that carry a weight, a clarity, and an emotional intensity that lingers long after you wake up. You may see someone who has passed away, someone you have not thought about in years, yet in that moment their presence feels immediate and undeniable, their face clear, their expression meaningful, sometimes even more vivid than when they were alive. And there is often something unusual about them, perhaps the way they look at you, the way they stand, or the silence they carry that speaks louder than words. In some cases, they may speak directly, saying simple but powerful phrases like, "Pray for me," or "I need your help." And even if the words are few, they leave behind a deep impression that does not fade when the dream ends. What truly distinguishes these experiences is not only what happens during the dream, but what remains afterward, because you do not wake up as you normally would. You wake up with a heaviness in your chest, a sense that something important has just occurred, something you cannot fully explain but cannot ignore either. And often this feeling is accompanied by a strong urge to pray, a quiet but persistent pull that seems to come from beyond your own thoughts. Padre Pio emphasized that this emotional residue is one of the clearest confirmations that the experience was not just a product of imagination, but a genuine moment of contact, a soul reaching across the veil asking for help. Sometimes the person in the dream does not speak at all. They simply look at you in a way that communicates urgency, sadness, or longing, and that silent expression stays with you throughout the day, returning to your mind again and again, as if asking you not to forget. And this repetition is not accidental. It is part of the message, a way of ensuring that you do not dismiss what you experience too quickly. In other cases, the dream may include specific details, references to prayer, to a mass, or to something that feels like a request. And Padre Pio insisted that these details should never be ignored, because they are often the clearest form of communication a soul can manage. The tragedy, however, is that most people experience these dreams and then move on with their day, convincing themselves that it was only their mind processing memories, and in doing so, they miss the opportunity to respond, to pray, to offer help at the exact moment it was needed most. And according to Padre Pio, this is one of the greatest missed acts of mercy in everyday life. Because when a soul manages to reach you in this way, it has already crossed a difficult boundary, and your response, even a simple prayer, can bring real relief to its suffering. So if you have ever had a dream that felt too real to ignore, a dream that left your heart restless and your thoughts unsettled, do not dismiss it too quickly. Pause, reflect, and most importantly, pray, because that moment may have been a call, quiet but urgent, asking you to become part of something far greater than yourself. In the next part, we will move beyond dreams into signs that engage your physical senses directly, signs that appear while you are fully awake and aware. The second sign does not come through dreams, but through your physical senses while you are fully awake. And this is where things become even more difficult to ignore. Because according to Padre Pio, souls in purgatory can sometimes manifest their presence through sensations that have no clear or natural explanation. You might be sitting quietly when suddenly you notice a distinct fragrance filling the air, something sweet like roses or a familiar perfume that instantly reminds you of someone who has passed away, even though there is no source nearby, and just as quickly as it appears, it fades away, leaving you questioning what just happened. In other moments, the scent may be heavier, something like smoke or burning, and Padre Pio warned that these types of odors can indicate a soul undergoing intense purification, a silent cry asking for urgent prayer. But these signs are not limited to smell alone, because many people also report sudden physical sensations that feel just as real, such as a cold wave passing through a specific part of the room, a chill that touches only you, while everything else remains unchanged, or even a subtle weight pressing on your shoulders or chest, as if something unseen is trying to make contact without causing fear. Padre Pio explained that these experiences are not meant to disturb or terrify, but to gently awaken your awareness, to let you know that something beyond the visible world is briefly intersecting with your reality. What makes these moments especially significant is their timing, because they often occur when your mind is calm, when you are not expecting anything unusual, making them stand out even more clearly. In these situations, the most important thing is your response, because the instinct of many people is to question, to doubt, or to dismiss what they felt. But Padre Pio insisted that overanalyzing can cause you to miss the purpose of the moment entirely, and instead he taught a simple and direct reaction: pause, acknowledge the moment, and pray immediately, even if the prayer is short, because that instant response can bring real relief to a soul that has made the effort to reach you. These signs are not constant. They do not happen every day, and that is precisely why they matter, because when they do occur, they carry a quiet urgency, a reminder that the spiritual world is closer than we think, and that sometimes in the middle of an ordinary moment, you are being invited to act with compassion in a way that truly matters. The third sign moves into something even more unsettling, because it involves sound, and according to Padre Pio, souls in purgatory can sometimes create audible signs when other ways of reaching you have not worked. These are not ordinary noises like a house settling or distant movement, but sounds that feel intentional, such as soft knocking on a wall, footsteps in an empty space, or even a faint voice calling your name when no one is there. What makes these experiences different is not just the sound itself, but the feeling that comes with it, a sense that it is directed at you, not random, not chaotic, but purposeful and gentle rather than threatening. Padre Pio emphasized that souls in purgatory do not come to frighten, they come with a kind of quiet urgency, almost like someone tapping softly on a door hoping you will hear them. At the same time, there is another sign that is even more subtle but often more powerful, and that is the sudden shift in your emotions and thoughts. Moments when you are going about your day, and without any clear reason you are overcome by a deep sadness, a heaviness that does not seem connected to your own life. You may suddenly think about someone who passed away years ago, someone you had not remembered in a long time, yet their image appears clearly in your mind, along with an unexpected urge to pray for them. And this feeling can be so strong that it interrupts whatever you were doing. Padre Pio described this as a touch of compassion allowed by God, a moment where you briefly feel the need of a soul who can no longer help themselves. Sometimes this emotional pull comes with small actions that feel almost instinctive, like wanting to light a candle, visit a church, or simply pause in silence and pray. And even though these impulses may seem random, they often carry a deeper meaning because they arise suddenly and with a quiet insistence that is hard to ignore. What matters most is not trying to explain where the feeling came from, but recognizing what it is asking of you. Because when you respond, when you take even a small step like offering a prayer, that heavy feeling often lifts, replaced by a sense of peace that feels just as real as the sadness that came before it. These signs remind you that communication does not always happen through words or visible forms. Sometimes it happens through what you feel, through what suddenly enters your thoughts, and through the quiet movements of your heart that you cannot fully explain but somehow understand. In the next part, we will come to the most powerful sign of all, the one that combines everything and becomes almost impossible to dismiss. The fifth and most powerful sign is when multiple signs happen together, forming a moment that feels too precise to ignore. And according to Padre Pio, these are not coincidences, but what he described as clear spiritual communication. When a dream, a scent, a feeling, or a memory align in a way that points to the same person or moment, creating a sense of urgency that is almost impossible to dismiss. You may dream of someone, wake up with a strange feeling, and then encounter something during the day that reminds you of them again. And in that repetition, there is a message, simple but direct. Do not ignore this. Respond. So what should you do when this happens? The answer is not complicated. Padre Pio always insisted on something very simple. Stop and pray immediately. Even a short prayer offered with sincerity can bring real relief, and if possible, offer more. attend Mass, perform an act of charity, or dedicate your daily struggles for that soul, because every small act becomes meaningful when done with intention. In the end, the message is clear. These signs are not meant to scare you, but to invite you, to remind you that the spiritual world is closer than you think, and that sometimes you are being called to help in a way that truly matters. If you have experienced any of these signs, do not brush them aside. Pause, pray, and respond. Because in that moment, you may not only be helping a soul, you may also be opening your own heart to something deeper, something eternal.